Does the level of complexity and uncertainty in today's world feel overwhelming? Is it holding your organisation back, making it hard to make decisions or set a strategic plan? Well, it doesn't have to be the case. In this video, I'll help you understand complexity, but also show you some tools and tricks that you can use to set a strategic plan and make better decisions. Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Talbot. I'm the Managing Director of Graphite Eye, which is a boutique consultancy firm specialising in helping clients in the area of strategy, governance, and corporate finance, and particularly helping them understand uncertainty and complexity. On this channel, we provide a range of videos on the topics of strategy, governance, and corporate finance, so please remember to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest releases. In today's video, we're going to look at complexity. I'll help you understand the difference between complex, complicated, and simple, and how you might formulate a strategic plan in more complex environments. And stick around to the end, and I'll also give you some tips on how to improve decision making in a complex environment. So, what do we mean by complexity? Well, this simple analogy might help you understand the difference between simple, complicated, and complex. If you think of a car key and the ignition of your car, that's an example of a fairly simple system. You put the key into the ignition, turn it, and the car starts. There's really only one expected outcome, that the car starts. And there's really only one way to put the key into the ignition. This shows the elements of a simple system. There are few alternatives to how things can be done, and the outcomes are fairly predictable. If we then think about the car moving forward, we need to put it into gear, make sure the steering wheel is pointed in the right direction, and apply just the right amount of throttle to move the car forward. This is becoming a more complicated system. There are more elements to it. There are more things that can change and more variables. However, if we have enough data about those variables, we can then reasonably accurately predict what will happen with the car. If it's in first gear with a small amount of throttle applied, the car will move forward. Alternatively, if it's in reverse, we know it will go backwards. This is the elements of a complicated system. More variables, but with enough data, we can make reasonably accurate predictions about what will happen. Now let's consider the car is out on the road driving amongst traffic. Here we have a more complex system. Not only do we need to understand what our car is doing, but we need to understand what all the other vehicles on the road around us are doing, and what other elements might impact the journey along the road, such as roadworks, pedestrians, weather, etc. Here we have a range of variables that are all acting independently and often in unpredictable ways. This makes this system highly complex and very hard to predict outcomes with any degree of certainty. So now you can see the difference between simple, complicated, and complex, and hopefully can start to see how our ability to predict the future really varies under each scenario, and our ability to absorb data will impact that as well. So if you're operating in a very complex environment, what can you do to set a strategy and help move the organisation forward? Well, here are a few tips. Firstly, obtain an understanding of the complexity and what's driving it. You'll probably find, even in a complex environment, there are elements that are still simple or merely complicated. You need to understand where the complexity is and where those simple and complicated areas are. You also need to understand what elements you can control and what are beyond your control, so that you know how to adapt to each. Secondly, consider the data you're obtaining. It can be tempting to get reams and reams and reams of data. However, that's not necessarily going to help you any further. So just get the data and information that is going to provide the greatest insight without being stuck in a paralysis by analysis situation. You then also need to recognise that the future will be uncertain and hard to predict. You need to develop a strategy that's flexible and enables you to pivot quickly. Often you'll find in a complex environment the predictions you did make turn out to be inaccurate, and your strategy needs to be flexible enough to enable you to pivot to a new position and a new direction to meet those changed environmental conditions. You need to be prepared to take risks and experiment. Often the best way to develop a strategy in a complex environment is to undertake a series of smaller tests to see what sort of things do work and what things don't work. When things are working well, get behind them quickly and scale them up. If things are not working well, then fail fast and cut them off. You need to ensure your strategy is a living strategic plan. It's not something that's done once a year or once every couple of years. It's an ongoing part of the organisation and is constantly being reviewed and updated and changed. You may also find that scenario planning is a useful tool. Where the future can't be predicted with any degree of certainty and a range of outcomes are possible, test each of those range of possible outcomes and determine what sort of strategy or positioning the organisation would adopt under each of them, and be prepared to quickly change as one scenario emerges over another. And as I said at the start, here are my 5 tips for how you can make better decisions in an uncertain or complex environment. First step is to just simply acknowledge the uncertainty and complexity. There's no point in shying away from it, and there's no point in pretending that you know everything about the future when clearly you don't. So accept that the future is uncertain and work accordingly. Secondly, gather data and information. You want to make sure you have enough data and information that you can adequately understand where the uncertainty and complexity is coming from and what it could mean for the future. But don't try and collect so much data that you predict the future accurately, because you'll never get there and you'll just get stuck in an endless cycle of data collection. Thirdly, identify the key principles that will underpin your decision making. Rather than trying to focus on the decision itself or predict the future, take a step back and think about what are the principles that are most important in decision making and that will help indicate when a correct decision is made. Thinking about the core principles is an easier task than trying to make a decision about an uncertain future. Fourthly, make a decision and commit to it. Whilst it will be difficult and you'll never have a perfect amount of information or a perfectly clear decision, it's more important to make a decision and act than it is to continually go through a process of analysis and uncertainty. But finally, having made that decision, be prepared to be flexible. Continue to monitor the environment and the results of your decision, and if it becomes clear that the decision needs to change, then don't be afraid to change it. It's better to change a decision early than continue down the path of a wrong or bad decision. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please remember to give it a like and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all the latest releases. You might also be interested in our range of governance and strategy training courses, and I'll put links in the description below. Or feel free to reach out at online.graphitei2i.com.au if we can assist in any other way. Thanks for watching.